Greetings, mortals! It is I, Remortis, and today I'm coming at you with another Rogue Trader guide. Going over a really fun build, a dual-wielding pistol soldier bounty hunter. It's honestly really versatile, and you can customize it to your liking. As I go over the builds, I will go on a little bit of tangents here and there on which options you might consider. Yeah, this build is a lot of fun. It could be either a psyker, it could be a crime lord. It's a highly mobile, tons of burst attacks. You're going to do lots of damage, and more importantly, lots of armor penetration, so you're just going to melt things, quite literally. But fear not, there will be timestamps below to skip ahead to whatever is relevant to you. And honestly, without further ado, let's just get right into the video, shall we? But first, boot.dev has once again sponsored this video. Looking to level up your coding skills and rise to the top? Then look no further than boot.dev, where you can earn XP, climb levels, complete quests, and compete on the global leaderboard. And of course, you should join the boot.dev community on Discord. It's an active supporter space where you can connect with fellow students to get help and keep growing together. Boot.dev isn't about shortcuts, it's a journey into the core of coding fundamentals. So you're not just learning, you're preparing for a real career in tech. Ever feel like you're stuck on a problem? Well, meet Boots, your AI-powered bear wizard guide. He won't just hand you the answer, he's here to ask you questions to help you understand the concepts deeply, giving you a trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak. Whenever you're stuck, Boots has got your back. If you're not sure that boot.dev is the right fit, well, don't worry. Every course offers a free demo with interactive features. Plus, there's a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy, so you can explore without risk. And be sure to use my code, Remortis, to get 25% off your first payment for boot.dev. Ready to start your coding adventure? Visit boot.dev and discover a different way to code today. So into the character build, there are 3 different homeworlds you may consider. The first one that we want to talk about is the Fortress World. This is probably the best one overall. It's going to give you a passive feature called Never Stop Shooting. Each time you kill an enemy, you gain 10 stacks of Never Stop Shooting. And at the start of your turn, there is a percentage chance based on your Never Stop Shooting stacks that you'll get a free attack in that round with 0 AP. And it won't cost your attack limits, which is great. And there are plenty other ways to stack Never Stop Shooting, but obviously the main way is killing people, and we're going to be doing that quite well as a soldier. The other 2 things we want to look at as well is our talents. Familiar Kickback, this is another way to help generate some more stacks, and as well as Spare Magazine. We get a free reload, and then 10 stacks of Never Stop Shooting. I know you're thinking, why would we grab this on a soldier character? It's probably a little worse on a soldier character, however, you still get that free 10 stacks, which is always nice. And whenever you reload, period. So having both of them is not a bad thing. Sure, the free reload is overlapping with rapid reload from soldier, but getting that 10 stacks every time we reload for 1 AP is really nice because the other rapid reload will reduce the AP. Fortress World is really good, and it's going to be the main homeworld that you're going to want for this build. Another homeworld that actually works quite well is the Forge World. Why is that? Well, right away you get to pick between 3 different systems to enhance yourself. For this build, I highly suggest the locomotion system since we're going to have a ton of agility, which means we get more bonus and more dodge. And more dodge will actually mean we get more damage way down the road. We'll explain that when we get to our Exemplar levels. The other reason I suggest Forge World, Pinnacle of Weaponry is what we're looking for if we decide to go with the Forge World option. This will be more of a single target or area attack pistol build, not with the burst. And when we're going through the levels, I will point out which talents to grab for the burst version and the area attack version, because area attacks are not the same as bursts. And there's good soldier talents for both playstyles. There's also some pretty good plasma and melta weapons throughout the game, but there's plenty of burst pistols as well. So really it's all down to your personal choice. So Fortress World and Forge World are both very, very viable options for this build. I think that Fortress World is the superior of the 2. It'll still work out in the end. You'll have to see it in action. I'll showcase some footage from both of them. The third option I was going to mention was the Hive World. Strength in numbers is decent to get a little bit more resolve, but weapon personalization is really nice to have as well. But I don't think this one talent is enough to warrant grabbing your Hive World as your home world versus Fortress and Forge. Yeah, so I highly suggest doing Fortress World. Now for this origin, there are really 2 main ways you can go about this. Potentially 3. The main one I really like is Crime Lord. I'm a huge advocate for Crime Lord road creators, mostly because look at that jacket. How could you beat that outfit? No, but really, Surefire Plan's a really fantastic feature as well. You'll gain stacks of this at the beginning of your combat based on your intelligence. We're not going to be too worried about that. And anytime you use this, it'll affect your next ability afterwards. Whether it is reducing their damage or increasing your dodge when you move, or just simply increasing your damage by a good amount. And then it scales based off your perception. It also comes with 2 talents that we want to keep an eye out for. A Killing Plan will further increase our bonus damage by our weapon skill, but which isn't too important because our weapon skill is not going to be super high. Although the passive buffs we're going to get from our officers giving us buffs will increase that a little bit. But the main reason we want Killing Plan is for the second part of the effect. Killing at least one enemy will restore a stack of for Surefire Plan, and we're going to be killing tons of people. So Killing Plan is definitely a must-have talent down the road. And since we'll be attacking so much, Contingency Plan is actually a really good talent to pick up down the road, because eventually we're going to run out of stacks, and this will at least help us get 1 stack at the beginning of our turn. It's a really good origin and one of my favorites, and has a lot of really good dialogue throughout the game. Cool stuff. Another one to consider is the Astra Militarum Commander. This one needs a little bit more tactics involved. For their feature, Regimental Tactics. The commander and their allies deal additional damage to enemies that are adjacent to the commander. So that really we need to worry about putting Abelard or Cabela or whoever else is up in front in the correct position and getting good position. You can actually get a good amount of damage out of this too. The only downside is you only can use it once per combat. Although really, once you use it, hopefully the combat's over shortly after. But not only that, you get a ton of damage, but also your commander's allies will suffer no damage from you. So this is going to be very good, especially if you just mow down a bunch of enemies near your Abelard, most likely, who's going to be a Vanguard, if you went with the Astra Militarum. There is another talent here, Shoulder to Shoulder. When you're next to an ally, such as your other ranged combatants, or your like somebody like your officer or whoever, you'll get even more damage to all enemies adjacent to the commander's allies. So, pretty cool. And it stacks pretty well with the Camaraderie Soldier talent. So it's just another idea to actually utilize this underused origin. And of course, it goes without saying, the Pyromancer Psyker is also really good at being a part of this build as well. Notably, with some of their talents, Blazing Inferno, every time you do damage, it'll increase your crit chance, which goes amazingly well with the Fired Up talent from Soldier, which instead of increasing your critical hit chance will increase your critical damage. So obviously these goes hand in hand. Another fantastic talent that will go amazingly well with this build is the Melting Armor talent. As a bounty hunter, we're going to have so many ways to just shred people's armor. So every time an enemy suffers damage from the Psyker, the enemy's armor is reduced by 5%, and then eventually, once their armor is inevitably 0, you'll reduce their deflection, which is crazy considering how much we're going to be reducing their armor. Another really good one to look at is Fire Within. Every time the Psyker kills or scores a critical hit against 8 creatures in one combat, the Psyker's next attack will cost 0 AP and will not count towards the attack limit per turn.
But wait, there's more.
So we're going to be going into a bounty hunter with this build. And with that comes a lot of cool and interesting tactics, particularly with the bounty system and getting a lot of free turns. So there's a talent called Savor the Kill, which will allow you to get a free turn whenever your ally kills somebody. So you could chain that with your Psyker Soldier Bounty Hunter by using the Inflame abilities. Because I should mention that those Bounty Hunter free extra turns, you can't use any damaging abilities, but you can use debuffs and non-damaging abilities. However, Inflame is technically a damaging ability, so maybe it'll get patched down the road, who knows. But at the moment, you can keep killing people with other people on that's not your Psyker's turn, and then keep casting Inflame, and then it will bounce back to whoever else's turn it was. And when you do that, they will get they just keep killing whatever's not killed by the Inflame. So you can just keep chaining off of that, and it's pretty crazy. Give Argento a Flamer and check it out. I did some playthroughs of it, something similar with an Oops All Bounty Hunter playthrough. But anyways, because I know a lot of people are tired of hearing about how good Psykers are, especially Pyromancer. This is just unfortunately another build that goes really well with it. But for the sake of being a little bit different, we will be going with the Crime Lord. And I will mention, though, that when you're in your Exemplar talents, I do want to mention, though, that with this build, that the Awakened Psyker talent and the Exemplar talents for Pyromancer specifically can be utilized here. And it's probably one of the few builds that actually really benefits from dipping into the Pyromancer that late in the game, for those talents I just mentioned a second ago. So, honestly, if you really want a real powerhouse, start off as Crime Lord, and then in Exemplar levels, go ahead and pick up that Pyromancer thing. Just be careful, though, because you are an Unsanctioned Psyker. So if you do the Inflame chaining, there's a chance
she might turn into a Corn Demon.
Even without using the Psyker powers, just having the access to those Pyromancy talents that combine with the Soldier and the Bounty Hunter extremely well as getting that free attack is phenomenal. All right, with all that out of the way, let's move on to our triumphs. We got 2 logic choices and an Illustrious Glow. So at the Darkest Hour, all 3 of these are actually kind of important, especially when you get to the spots where you're solo by yourself. Of all of them, I probably would take the hit to commerce. Honestly, I don't think it comes up nearly as much as persuasion or carouse. And then lastly, we will be picking the soldier. All right, so for our stats, we will be picking up 10 extra points in perception, 10 points in agility, and 10 points in ballistic skill. So ballistic skill is going to be your main stat. It's going to increase your accuracy as well as reduce the recoil, chance to hit from recoil. So hit chance is going to be your ultimate thing you get from ballistic skill, and it's going to be a lot of our abilities will actually chain off of ballistic skill as well. Agility is really good because A, gives you better initiative, and also a lot of your soldier abilities will scale incredibly well with agility. And your dodge too, which also can be weaponized in your exemplar levels. Perception is another way to increase your attack as well. A lot of our abilities from Bounty Hunter, and I think a couple from Soldier, will be based off your perception rating, as well as some of the interesting effects throughout the game, but also increases your awareness and reduces the enemy's chance to dodge. So ultimately, this will help increase your damage too. And that's pretty much the stats for the build we're going to be showcasing for the most part today. However, if you did go with the Forge World version of this build, and then for our characteristics, instead of doing the 10 points into perception, we'll do 1 in perception and then 1 in intelligence just to even it out. And then during our soldier levels, we won't really be able to increase our intelligence too much unless you pick up, use one of your common talents to increase it, and then you can increase it from there on out. In that build, I would probably focus on your ballistic skill and your intelligence, and a little bit of agility, and then perception as well. But not so much with agility because you're not going to have ways to really make it sky high like you can with the other build. But I just wanted to showcase these stats in case people were curious, because I know people are going to ask about it. All right, so again, let's just go back to our Fortress World. Still a crime lord for both builds, and then we're going to fix our stats. And there you go. This is our stats at level 1, and we're going to move on to the rest of the build. So moving on to the rest of the build, continuing our soldier levels, we're going to start with the run and gun feature, and we're going to go from there. I will forewarn you guys, I probably will go on tangents, but then I'll also mention some options you can take should you desire, because this build is actually really customizable, so you can suit it to however you want to play this spec. A lot of fun, and there's a lot of nuances that can be used for this build. So again, play it as you like. These are just some of my suggestions, and I'll give you reasonings for it, and then I'll give you suggestions on what to do for the other variants of this build. All right, so starting off, run and gun is an amazing feature. It's going to let us be able to do a second attack, get more movement based on our agility, and then we do become winded, but that can get negated once we get enough kills for Revel and Slaughter, which will reset the cooldown. However, you can't use this twice in one round, no matter even if you do use Revel and Slaughter. But we'll get to that in a second. So run and gun's great. This will allow you to get in position to maybe you do a burst attack, and then you do run and gun. Maybe you want to get a little closer, or maybe you want to get around something. You can also just use run and gun before you even take any of your shots. You will take a -10 penalty to hit for both those, so be careful with that. But ultimately, it's not really going to matter too much if you do decide to do that. Say when you get all the movement to get in the right position to just do 2 shots right in a row, you can totally do that. It's totally fine. Otherwise, you can just shoot once, and then maybe you want to go a different direction and shoot somewhere else. But yeah, run and gun's great. It's one of the best abilities in the game. So this is what also makes the Pyromancer Soldier Bounty Hunter phenomenal as well, since you can do the Ignite Firestorm combo just on 1 turn, which is really great, and it makes a lot of people really enjoy the Pyromancer Blaster. This is a really great way to do it. All right, moving on. We're going to be increasing our awareness here. We're not going to worry about too much about the demolition. We will be picking it up, though, since we are going to have pretty high agility, although awareness will probably be our main stat for this character until you start picking up some other talents. Moving on to Revel and Slaughter, this is a phenomenal ability as well. Once you get 3 kills in a combat, you can use this ability. It'll increase your ballistic skill by 10, increase your critical damage by a significant amount, as well as your critical hit chance. All this is going to be based on your agility, and we're going to have plenty of ways to make our agility sky high with some of our other talents. Eventually, we're going to get a talent that will make it so we only need to kill 2 people, but it's not going to really matter that much because you only can reset run and gun so many times. So it's not super important to be able to have to stack this all the time, but stacking this is going to be great, especially on the longer fights, although I don't imagine too many fights are going to last longer than 3 turns. So Revel and Slaughter is really good. Moving on to our ultimate, Firearm Mastery, probably one of the best ultimates in the game. The only downside to this is that we're going to be using pistols, and pistols aren't typically weapons that use really good strikes. at least for single target. We're going to be doing a lot of burst weapons. That being said, you could use a stronger per hit weapon in your main hand and then use your burst weapon in your offhand. You won't take any penalties from using either one. There will be penalties to use both of them in the same turn, but we'll get to that later. But there's going to be a lot of abilities that will actually use your single fire shots, and which you'll probably want a stronger pistol in your main hand, and then you want a burst weapon in your offhand. Following that, we're going to take the rapid reload from the soldier. This is pretty much standard throughout most soldier builds. It's going to allow you to reload for free on your first turn, and then beyond that, will severely reduce the cost of reloading thereon after, which is going to be really good. Rapid reload is a good way to go. And as mentioned, we're going to increase our ballistic skill. This is going to be our main stat. Following up, we're going to be picking up the integrity talent. It's a pretty good one, and I often overlook it. But I like getting this up early on this character because we want to be up close since we're going to be using pistols, and pistols have really bad effective range. So we need to be kind of up close, kind of like mid-range, I guess. And then we'll get a little bit more ballistic skill and a little bit more movements. This is really good in the early game. I should mention, at this point in the game, literally at this level, this build does come online when you get to Yurok 5. There's a pistol that you can find, which I'll showcase in a second. You can find right here in this bookshelf, and yeah, it's really nice, and it'll get you going with this build fairly early. So anyways, moving on, we're going to further increase our ballistic skill, and then we're going to pick up our first ability, Rapid Fire. This is an amazing ability, as many people probably already know, on Argenta, and it's going to be really good on us too. And then we're going to further increase our agility. Following that, we're going to pick up our first common talent. I went with Familiar Kickback here. You don't have to pick this right away. You might want to wait until you have a stronger single hit pistol, in which case you might pick something else. You could pick up the dual weapon combat. I did not pick this up in this build, but I will mention why you would consider picking this up, because we're going to have plenty of AP to use, so you can get some free attacks off of this as well. But I wouldn't pick the dual weapon combat just yet this early in the game, because you're not going to have ways to really generate a lot of AP to be able to compensate for spending more AP on stuff. You could take Spare Magazine. You're probably wondering why we take this, considering we already have Rapid Reload. Yeah, the first reload is going to overlap each other, but getting that 10 seconds of Never Stop Shooting is going to be really good. Otherwise, you can just do some base skill increases to your stats, or if you really want to kind of metagame, so to speak, just really dive into whatever weapon you have first. Your first pistols that you're probably going to use in the early game are going to be solid weapon projectiles. So get a solid weapon expert. It's going to increase your minimum damage by 2, which is going to be really good. Otherwise, you can also decide that you're going to be using laser weapons or Xeno weapons, and most of the Xeno weapons are lasers. So this will help further reduce the dodge that your enemies have against your laser weapons. So laser weapon is good. Solid projectile weapon is good. You could get the dual weapon combat as well, or you can just increase your stats, whatever you'd like. But I went with Familiar Kickback. This is just going to help us generate a few more stacks on here, and that's going to be quite nice. All right, moving on. We're going to go and pick up Unfaltering Fire from Soldier. This is going to reduce the damage penalties to Rapid Fire. It's a no-brainer. Otherwise, we'll be taking a 25% less damage to our attacks, which isn't super crazy considering we're using pistols. We're not going to be hitting that hard, but this is just going to reduce the damage altogether. All right, moving on, we're going to increase our awareness. And then at level 9, we're going to get our first upgrade to our ultimate. And obviously, you need to pick up the fire rate. It's going to allow us to do more bursts throughout the combat. And yeah, it's really good. Moving on, we're going to pick up Alacrity. Each shot fired by the soldier grants them 1 agility until the end of their next turn. We're going to be shooting a ton. More agility, higher damage, scales off of other things as well, but yeah, it scales off of Revel and Slaughter, as well as some other talents we're going to be showcasing in a moment. After that, we're going to get our second ability, Dash. One of my favorite soldier abilities in the game, beyond Rapid Fire. This is going to allow us to really get into correct position and really just help us out a lot. One of my other favorite things about this is that it will actually can be used during the turns move granted from officers. So you can get even more distance and getting into the correct position to get that lined up burst attack just right. Following that, we're going to just do 1 level of Medikai so we can actually use our med kits, and then we're going to ignore it for the rest of the game. Then we're going to increase our perception since our agility and our ballistic skill is maxed. If you did go with the Forge World option, you can consider grabbing a common talent to increase your intelligence so that you can start spending your intelligence instead of perception here. And then you also pick up the instead of from their kickback level, you can grab the Forge World that lets you give intelligence bonus to your plasma. Anyways, moving on. On this build, I decided to go with the spare magazine. Again, the free reload from rapid reload and spare magazine will overlap. That's fine. But the reason why we get this is so we can get 10 stacks of never stop shooting. And then rapid reload's also meant for future reloads. So we're going to be able to get a lot of stacks just by reloading, and we're going to be reloading quite easily with our build. All right, after that, we picked up enough bullets for everyone. Honestly, in hindsight, I think you should pick up Wreck and Ruin first. You're going to be picking both of these abilities. They're going to be great. The reason being, enough bullets for everyone. Your second attack in a turn deals more damage to enemies that have not suffered damage from your soldier this turn. So you have to make sure you shoot a different group with this. Whereas Wreck and Ruin, you can just hit, as long as you hit 3 people, you just get bonus damage. And both of these scale off of, this one scales off your ballistic skill, this one's going to scale for your agility. But I highly suggest picking up Wreck and Ruin here. And then get enough bullets for everyone later. Following that, we're going to pick up Killing Plan because we're going to start killing lots of people, obviously, and then be able to get more surefire stacks, which is good. Following that, I just went up with the cheeky +5 to ballistic skill, and then we start increasing our demolition. And then for your second upgrade for your Firearm Master, you can go with either the first or the third option. I probably should have gone with the first one in hindsight because more movement is always great. And then your attacks will no longer spend MP, only for that turn, though. However, the other one is more of a value upgrade. Until the end of combat, your attacks are harder to dodge, and then also get a little more armor pen. But really, armor pen isn't too critical for the build because we're going to get shit tons of that from our Bounty Hunter, which is what we're going to be moving into next. So moving on to the Bounty Hunter, there are so many reasons why you want to go this way instead of the Arc Militant. It took me a while to realize how to actually play the Bounty Hunter, but I finally figured it out, and I realized I've been using them wrong completely. I used to just have them back as Irixia or somebody's a sniper and just shooting from behind, but you have to get in the thick of it and just really take advantage of the bounty system and some other things. So the way that this works, you mark 3 targets, and depending on their tier, you can see on the left side of your combat on their tier, there'll be Roman numerals on their portraits, if they have a portrait, and you'll get bonuses when you kill them if they're marked. Tier 1 and 2 will give you 25% of the bounty hunter's maximum health as temporary health. Whoop-de-doo. And then if there are 3 or 4 or higher, you can get critical damage as well as critical hit chance. And if they're beyond 5 and above, you'll get both of these bonuses, which is great. And then you only have 3 charges. But we'll be able to get more charges through other means. Our first ability we're going to grab actually is going to be Piercing Shot. Normally I go with Claim the Bounty first, but we're going to go with Piercing Shot. The next attack during this turn will have 100% over penetration and gives you more armor pen based on your perception bonus. And then if any of those targets is prey, everybody is going to get critical hit. It's disgusting. And 100% over penetration on a full burst. Ooh boy, you're going to be doing some damage. Following that, we're going to pick up all these sounds. You can, by the way, during the Bounty Hunter, you can pick up in any order. Another thing I want to note too, go backtrack a little bit to the Hunt Down the Prey. It is highly ideal to have at least 2 Bounty Hunters in your team. 2 is probably the perfect number. The second Bounty Hunter could either be Irixia or it could be Pascal. Those make great Bounty Hunters, and I'll get to that in a moment. Actually, I'll get into it right now. The main reason, you get more charges of bounties, so they can both mark bounties for each other, and they'll both get the same abilities, or they'll both trigger them as if they're their own prey, which is fantastic. And then there's another talent down here at the bottom called Savor the Kill. Whenever prey that is not being trailed, which is from another ability, and is killed by an ally, the bounty hunter gains an extra turn with half their MP and AP, and they cannot attack during this turn. So if your character, your bounty hunter, kills a target, and you have another bounty hunter, it'll go to their turn real quick so they can do some debuffs or set traps down, say Pascal, or do some exploit stuff with your operative. Or you can do it with Irixia, same thing. But then she can also stack her sniper attack when that ends her turn. So when it becomes her turn, she can go ahead and get free shots. So you could really stack up a bunch of shots with Irixia. It actually made me realize how undervalued she is. So having both of these 2 as bounty hunters is crazy. However, with Arc Bounty Hunter, we're not going to be grabbing Savor the Kill too early just yet. We're going to have Irixia be able to get those free turns, or Pascal. For us, we're going to be shredding the fuck out of people's armor, starting with Pierce Armor, or Pierce the Armor, rather. Whenever the bounty hunter scores a critical hit, the target's armor is reduced by a considerable amount based on your ballistic skill until the end of combat, and it stacks. And we're going to be critting a lot. Say bye-bye to your armor. And then we get to our ultimate, the Wild Hunt. The bounty hunter simultaneously makes several attacks. The number of attacks equals the number of prey in combat. These attacks are equally divided among all prey. So this is why you want to either have a really strong single shot pistol in your main hand, or perhaps you have a secondary weapon slot for a sniper rifle. Both of those are phenomenal ways to go about it. And then you can take advantage of the Wild Hunt. However, I do believe the Soldier Ultimate to be way better than the Wild Hunt. All right, level 20, we're going to get our AP increase our ballistic skill, and then we're going to take up a common talent here to pick up Lord Xenos. The reason being, we might want to use Eldari weaponry or Drukhari weaponry. Both of them are really good ideas to do with this build. Or you can ignore that altogether. It's all up to you. Following that, we're going to pick up our ballistic skill, and then we're going to take another hunter talent called Cut to the Chase. Whenever your bounty hunter scores a critical hit for the first time in a round, they will gain extra movement points, which is great. So you can move around the little battlefield and get into ideal positions and keep chasing down those targets and getting your optimal pistol range. Following that, we're going to get our second ability. This is one of my favorites, Claim the Bounty. You'll make a free single attack with the selected weapon, so you can switch between your single target weapon or your burst attack weapon, but most likely do the single one since it's obviously stronger. This attack always hits, does not use your movement, but only does a percentage of your attack, and will go up to 100% based on your ballistic skill and perception. With enough of your officer passive abilities and buffs and such, you're going to be able to get that pretty high. So this is the 68% with what we're at currently by ourselves, and then we'll get a lot higher later with our buffs. Another thing to note is that after the third enemy killed by Claim the Bounty, the bounty hunter will get another charge of Hunt Down the Prey. And you don't need to kill a prey with this. It could be anybody. And you'll be able to get your charge back after 3 of them. So yeah, Claim the Bounty is really sweet. But beyond that, if you do kill a prey, you'll get an additional 2 AP. Very nice. Which is another reason why this build can actually utilize dual wield pistols quite well. Even though in this current setup that I'm showing you, I didn't use the dual wield. But that's because we have items to help compensate for that. But we could get an extra attack if we did plan for that, and I didn't do that. But anyways, yeah, so this will help also in helping enable the dual wield, and I'll stop going on that tangent. Moving on to level 23, we'll pick up Heightened Concentration. Whenever the bounty hunter scores a critical hit, they'll gain 8% armor penetration until the end of combat. And that's based on your perception. And it's any time you score a critical hit. We're going to have stupid amounts of armor pen. In one burst even. It's crazy. Moving on, get awareness, and then increase our perception. And then this is when I picked up Eldari weapon proficiency. You can totally ignore this. As I mentioned. You could probably pick up a stat here or something, or a skill check, whatever you desire. Or you can specialize in your solid weapon projectile, your laser weapon projectile. But this is the earliest you could feasibly grab your Eldari weaponry. And there's actually a few good weapons in the game at this point. You should have that sweet sniper rifle from Jai. Unless you're going to give that to Irixia, I probably would recommend that. But it's really good on you too for a secondary. Or there's some good Eldari pistols. Or you can hold out for and go for Drukhari weaponry, because there's some really good pistols there as well. All right, moving on. We're going to go into perception. We'll get the next talent we're going to grab is Hunting Surge. Whenever you kill an enemy with a critical hit by the bounty hunter, you'll increase your damage. And it's not the first time, by the way. So this will keep going up and up and up. As long as you're killing people while you crit them. And we'll be critting a lot. Hunting Surge is really good. Following up that, we're going to get awareness and perception. And then we get our first upgrade to the Wild Hunt. I just did the extra charges here, but we're not going to be using this one too often. Following that, we'll take Claim and Maim. If the bounty hunter kills a target with the Claim the Bounty, your next attack will guaranteed be a critical hit, and that will apply to a full burst, by the way. Following that, we'll pick up Demolition, Perception, and then we pick up the common feature to get more perception here. And then we pick up Cull the Bold. This is another really good hunter ability. The next attack this turn will have additional effects. We'll deal additional ballistic skill damage. Sweet. Have their armor even further reduced, And then here's the really cool part about it. If the armor against this attack is below 20%, the enemy's dodge is also decreased by a considerable amount based on their difficulty tier. Additionally, the damage of the bounty hunter attack is increased by a combination of your perception, ballistic skill, and intelligence bonus. So you would use Cold Bold after you shred the crap out of their armor with an initial burst. And then you use Cold Bold and then just blow them up to smithereens. But yeah, look at that. 17 damage of the attack. That's pretty nice. On a full burst. Ooh. Yeah, this is awesome. Moving on, we're going to get Hunter's Ambush. When the bounty hunter performs a single shot attack on an immobilized or stunned target, this attack refunds its costs and does not count for the attack limit once per round. So, if you have ways to make sure an opponent is immobilized or stunned, say such as a stun grenade, in which case you probably would consider picking up the Grenadier common skill to use stun grenades, just got to remember to put them on. Or if you have another weapon or some kind of ability that triggers immobilization, such as Ensnare the Prey, this is a really good talent to use to get free attacks. That is why if you use a strong single-firing pistol in the main hand and then a crazy burst weapon in the offhand, it would go really well together. So you can get a free shot, and you can combo off some other stuff of your other talents. And get a free attack here. Really nice. Moving on, we're going to increase our agility and our demolition, and then we're going to pick up the talent Expert Finesse. Whenever the bounty hunter kills an enemy whose tier is 4 or higher, the bounty hunter will immediately reload their weapon and attacks the closest enemy in their line of sight. This attack gains 50% over penetration, but only deals a percentage of its usual damage, again, scaling off your ballistic skill and perception, which is, again, another reason why you want a strong, hard-hitting pistol in the main hand. Following that, we picked up Swift Movement, so we can get even more movement around the battlefield. And then we will move on to our Exemplar Levels. And oh boy, this is where a lot of the customization comes in. There are a lot of phenomenal Exemplar talents that we want in this build. Extermination is fantastic. Cataclysm is fantastic. Pinpoint Accuracy is really good. And then there's a few others that you might consider as well. Psychic Awakening for Pyromancy is phenomenal as well. I didn't do it in this specific build that I'm showcasing right this second because, as you can see, we are beyond the first level Exemplar, and because we haven't been able to lock this in, we can't actually get Pyromancy features to appear until we lock it in. So this would probably be one, if you wanted to really optimize your character, I would highly encourage you to pick Psychic Awakening for your first Exemplar talent, and then I'll show you, I guess I'll show you right now. In which case, you'll once on your first common levels, or even one of your bounty hunters levels or whoever, you want to grab Psyker Minoris, Psyker Majoris, if you wanted to do the cheesy tactics with the Inflame. Otherwise, the other ones you want to consider grabbing is Blazing Inferno to stack with Fired Up, Fire Within, so once you get 8 critical hits or kills, you get a free attack, and Melting Armor. Since we're already shredding the fuck out of their armor, do it even further. And yeah, it's pretty nuts. It's really, really good for this build to go into the Psyker Pyromancer. But if you don't want to deal with any of that, you don't have to. In which case, I highly suggest picking up Extermination. Any damage the character deals is increased by 1 for every attack they've made this combat. We're going to be making lots of attacks. It's a no-brainer. Following up, we're going to be picking up Fired Up. Whenever the character deals damage, their critical damage is increased by 1%. Decided to take Fired Up later because it's not 100% guaranteed you'll be critting too much in the early game, which is why I decided to get this later. At this point, we're going to be critting all the time, so get it now and do even more damage. All right, we'll pick up Awareness here, and then we'll pick up the Flay the Bold talent from the Bounty Hunter, which will make our Cold the Bold ability remove Deflection, Willpower, and Toughness based on their difficulty tier. Really good. We'll increase our Ballistic skill, and then this is where I picked up some stuff to round up our experts and such. You can obviously pick this stuff up earlier if you if you have an idea of what you wanted to grab. Super interchangeable. I will post a list of all the stuff you want to grab, and then I'll show which ones are optional and what you could do for your own self. All right. So if you did not go the Pyromancer route, you'd pick up Entrench here. I don't use it too often, but it is decent if you happen to have spare MP and AP and you have no attacks left. So you can kind of carry these over your next turn. However, if you did pick the Pyromancer on the first Exemplar level, you can go ahead and pick up Firestorm here. We're not going to be too worried about doing the Pyromancy stuff in terms of our damage, but The reason why I want to get fire numbers is because we could spread our dots if we wanted to, but we need to at least get one ability for our next ability to pick up Inflame. Because there's some cool shenanigans we can do that, which we'll cover in a moment. Yeah, otherwise, if we're doing a non-psyker, pick up Entrench. Moving on, we're going to pick up Cataclysm. All damage dealt by this character is increased by 3% until end of combat for every new enemy damaged by them this combat. Really good. We're going to be damaging all kinds of abilities, so that's just going to be a pretty solid increase. Say you hit about 10 to 20 people per combat, that's going to be 30 to 60% extra damage for free, pretty much. Some other options to consider as well. You can also use the degraded defensive if you so desire. This will kind of help make your allies do a little bit extra damage. More of a support ability, so you probably wouldn't really consider it too much. Puncture could be really good. Since our armor penetration is going to be way higher than our armor, we'll get more crit chance. Pretty nice. It's too bad it didn't increase your critical damage, though. Shot through is going to be good to pick up eventually. You get more penetration, and then more importantly, your attacks can't be dodged from your overpen, so which is really nice. Otherwise, pinpoint accuracy could be really good, but for now, we're going to pick up Cataclysm. And then we're going to pick up the Bounty Hunter talent called Inspiring Trophy. Whenever the Bounty Hunter kills a prey whose difficulty tier is 4 or higher, you get more AP. Nice. And then we'll pick up more Ballistic Skill. And then this is when I pick Wreck and Ruin. I would probably pick up enough bolts for everyone at this point and swap them. All right, so if you didn't go the Pyromancer route at your first exemplar level, you're going to pick up Hot on the Trail here. I don't really use Hot on the Trail too often, for the same reason I don't really use Entrench, because it will end your turn. You might even consider getting Ensnare the Prey. Really good talent as well. But I usually have Ensnare the Prey be on your secondary Bounty Hunter, such as Pascal or your Liette. And then we increase our Perception. And then we're going to pick up Savor the Kill. So this is going to be if you're anybody else besides your character kills the prey, they will get an extra turn. But you can't use your main attacks or anything like that. So real quick, another thing to mention though too is if you have Savor the Kill on your secondary Bounty Hunter, and say your first character is the one that killed people to trigger that, well, it's going to bounce to your other Bounty Hunter. They're going to do their quick little free turn and do whatever it is they're going to do. And then whenever it swaps back to you, because we're a Fortress World character and we have Never Stop Shooting, anytime you get another turn, you'll be able to get that Never Stop Shooting to trigger again. So it's going to be pretty sweet, especially getting a lot of these extra turns from the Bounty Hunter or the secondary Bounty Hunter, and you'll be able to get potentially more free attacks to keep going. And then I picked up a round out to get another laser weapon. Again, you could always pick up the dual wield stuff earlier. So you got dual wield combat here, but this is really the only part you can get because you can't get dual wield specialist unless you do the melee thing. So really just getting the extra attack here for 1 additional AP is not game breaking because we'll get other sources of AP through our Bounty Hunter stuff. And then we're going to increase our Demolition and then pick up Pinpoint Accuracy. We'll ignore more of their deflections, which is ultimately going to be more damage. And then the higher ballistic skill we get, the less deflection we do. Yeah, that's pretty much the build in the nutshell. Other options you could pick is Masterful Precision. So say if you have that really strong, hard-hitting attack, your Claim the Bounty will do extra damage as if it was a Deadeye shot. Masterful Display, same thing. Since we're going to be, you can do Overpen shot with your single fire shot and hit multiple people and increase your ballistic skill, which is great. A lot of good options for you to pick. Another thing I want to mention as well, critical velocity is going to be the way you can weaponize your dodge. You might consider getting this earlier. This will make any of your dodge source become critical damage, which is phenomenal. And we're going to be making our agility sky high, and obviously more agility equals more dodging. Really good. And then even further, you can pick up Tricky Defense to get yourself a little bit more dodge based on your light armor. But I think we only have 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is it? I think it's 5, maybe 6. Yeah, you only have 6 exemplar talents specifically. So I'll list a build for this in an Excel spreadsheet so you can kind of see which ones you can take and how many options are available for us to grab. And that's pretty much the build in a nutshell. As you can see, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. It's really fun. And yeah, we'll showcase some footage in a second, but first let's get into some of the gear. Now, I should mention, some of this is not necessarily the most optimal because I did sell a lot of gear in order to get up to our reputation to be all maxed. In which case, I won't have some of the items available, which I would highly recommend. All right, so let's just get into the items we have at the moment. Starting off with the para holster, this is probably the quintessential item that makes the build really work. You can do it without it, but this, it's just so good. You get this in Act 2 after you deal with Jai, or you recruit her, or you can probably go there without doing her stuff, and you can still get this, I'm pretty sure. Either way, this is phenomenal. Never part with this. Secondly, I'll show our helmet, the Gunslinger helmet, which you can get also in Act 2, shortly after Janus, or right in that region. There is a void ship that's being attacked by pirates, and one of the pirates has this. It's a really good helmet. Increases the damage of ranged attacks, equal to your rate of fire. So as you can see, if we have our sniper on here, we only have 2%, but when we go to our pistols, it goes up to 16, because I think it uses the highest one. Pretty nice. So it doesn't have to matter if it's in your main or not. Speaking of our weapons, currently we are in Act 4, Act 5, and we have access to 2 really good guns. I first want to talk about the Daredevil pistol. This pistol is amazing. As you can see here, we have 8 shots right off the bat from the rate of fire, and a maximum ammo count of 48. And then more importantly, burst attacks made with this weapon cost 0 AP. Awesome, right? That way we can actually have spare AP to use our attacks with our dual wield talent if we grabbed it. For our main pistol at the moment, I'm using the anti-vehicle revolver. It's pretty strong damage. It does have a burst as well. And then anytime you hit something with it, it explodes. Pretty good. And then works on, oh man, you should see this when you do a burst attack on a full mob. Oh, it's the best. The only downside to this weapon, it has a maximum ammo count of 6. And you actually can increase the rate of fire beyond 6, but it doesn't matter because there's only 6 ammo. So, something to think about. Other single target attacks you might consider could be for plasma, or it could be from Drukhari here, as you see. Really good attack. There's a lot of really good weapons out there. Again, in this playthrough, I probably sold a lot of the good stuff to make sure I got my reputations maxed. But play with whatever weapons you think sound cool. This is my preferred setup at the moment. I like switching between the dual pistols and the Eldar sniper. Otherwise, you could probably use these Eldar snipers on the Iliad, obviously. It's up to you at the end of the day. But yeah, anti-vehicle revolver and the Daredevil pistol. There is that pistol you get in Act 1. This is going to be really good, especially in tandem with the heirloom pistol. But there are plenty of pistols out there that only are strong single target hits, and you're going to probably use that as your main hand, and then use your burst attacking weapon in the offhand. Following that, we got our focus incense here. Each use of Revel and Slaughter increases the perception by 10, and it will stack just like your Revel and Slaughter does. There's probably better necklaces out there, but this is a pretty decent one. Next, we have a pretty cool trinket called Echo of Victory. I'm pretty sure this is from your Colony project stuff. Whenever the wearer attacks a target in a 5-cell radius around them with a ranged weapon, this attack will deal more damage, which is based off of your armor penetration. So obviously our penetration is going to get really fucking high. This is going to do a ton of damage. For our gloves, we're using the stabilizer bracers, but there are so many really good options for your hands. We have the recoil gloves, which just straight up gets rid of your recoil reduction by half, so it means your stuff's going to hit more often. You get the compensator gloves here, which just flat out ignores recoil while performing burst attacks. And then the rate of fire of the weapon is increased by 42%. So you can see here, it bumps it up to 7. And this one goes up to 11. Pretty nuts. And the backpack here also increases our burst weapon stuff and also can help negate recoil. So you don't need to wear both of these together. And then if you type in here, go to rate of fire. There's another backpack, the tactical backpack. Pretty simple. Now we're at 13. And this is still at, oh, this went down to 6. Interesting. Oh, it's probably because the other backpack increased it to 7. Pretty nice. And then if you use our ultimate from our soldier, we can get that rate of fire even higher. However, for some reason, oh, because it's not showing it off. It still shows us having recoil here, whereas the other backpack would just take it off completely. But it says while you're performing burst attacks, you reduce the recoil. So that's all that really matters, anyways. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty nuts, especially with this Daredevil pistol just shredding things. You're gonna be doing tons and tons of damage. I do want to showcase Freedom and Vengeance. This is another really good gauntlet to use, but this is more for the plasma side of things, or Melta. As long as you're not using a burst attack, so either your single targets or your area attacks, you'll push a target by 2 cells. And if you do kill somebody with a pistol attack, they immediately reload it. And each pistol reload grants 5% crit. Pretty cool. You either use the compensator gloves, which is really good, or you can use the stabilizers to get more crit damage, or you could also use these rapid desolations that cause perplex on people, because there's some really cool guns you can get from one of the DLC fights, which will do even more stuff if they're perplexed. There's so many cool combinations with this build. For boots, I just got +5 agility and athletics. I'm sure there's better stuff out there. Like I said, I sold a lot of crap to get my reputations and max on this run, but all right. Now let's show some footage of the build in action.
Isn't this a job for the serfs?
So we're going to give ourselves an extra turn. We're then going ahead and move ourselves in position and mark our bounty. We're going to see if we can mark the other target over here, but he is out of range. Then we move ourselves in position. We're going to get our rapid fire ready. Just looking at some of the abilities real quick. And we're going to use Call the Bold to enhance our next attack to do quite a bit more damage. Although it would be better to do it on our second attack. We're going to do a burst fire with our Devil Shot. And then we're going to use our anti-vehicle and just blow him up. Then hit him for another attack because he was a tier 4 or higher. Of course I had the wrong weapon in the incorrect hand, so it didn't do as much damage as it could have. So we finished him off with the first weapon. We're going to use our Revel and Slaughter. And then we're going to entrench. We're going to use Cassia to move us out of harm's way and end our turn. And just keep her there and end her turn. That will give us a little bit of momentum so we can use our ultimate when it gets to our turn. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get ourselves into position closer to our next target, which is going to be the big chaos thingy over here, the Ferocious Hellbrute. Take note of his armor here. He's got 120%. We're still a little far away, so we're going to get a little bit closer. Forgot that we already hit him with that. Use our rapid fire and just shred him quite a bit with our first attack. And now his armor is only at 30%. And we're going to hit him with another burst attack, followed by another burst attack. Kaboom. We're just going to run up here and just start mowing people down. We did only kill that guy there, so we're going to use our Revel and Slaughter. Marks a target here. We're going to switch to our Hecaton rifle, which is pretty sweet for over penetration. Do a kill shot on here to get a free attack. Look at that. Swap back over our pistols, get more attacks. And then I said, fuck it, let's go ahead and use our ultimate now. Again, if we had our other pistol in our main hand, we'd be able to do a lot better damage, but it's okay. I really hope you enjoyed this guide. Feel free to comment down below how you prefer to build your dual wield pistol build, or bounty hunter builds in general. I'll be posting the spreadsheet shortly after uploading this video. Either way, please like, comment, and subscribe for more guides like these, and I'll see you in the next video. Farewell for now.
Who if stood a chance?